Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I'm your host, Tommy Maloney. Before we get started, just want to let you know my new book, My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m., is available on the website, blendingfamily.com. And if you order it from the website, it will be autographed, or you can also go to Amazon and purchase it that way. Either way, the new book, My Dad's Advice at 5:04 a.m. is out. Now, on with the podcast.
Yeah, I used to volunteer at my daughter's school one day a week to help in the canteen. And the questions would come thick and fast because I'd be the only guy there. And I think by the questions that came, the only guy that is ever there, I wrote an article that was called The Only Unicorn in the Village. And that's how it felt at some stage. Oh, why aren't you at work? Don't you work? Oh, what went wrong? Oh, where's your wife? You know, why are these? And it was all framed in the negative. Oh, what went wrong? What went? It's like, no, like I want to be involved in the minutiae of my daughter's life. We seem to have lost sight in so much of the equality debate that the things that matter the most, the things of the greatest value, and the things that we want in our legacy aren't actually things.
Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney, on this wet and rainy day here in northern Colorado. You're saying, Tommy, where have you been? Let's talk about our guest first. Today's guest is Michael Ray. Michael is the author of the book, Who Knew? He is also a LinkedIn Top 10 in Gender Equality Voices of 2022. He's a presenter, a public speaker, but first and foremost, a solo dad. Michael's journey has encouraged him to break the mold of male stereotypes, overcome male stigmas, and allow men and fathers to focus on activity, raising their children. Three things we did talk about throughout this podcast with Michael. Number one, being a special unicorn. Number two, nightly job performances. Now, let me just touch on this real quick. Parents, this is something you might want to start incorporating with your younger kids. I don't know how I would be able to do this right now with having older kids, but this is something that just blew my mind, okay? So again, nightly job performance. And number three, along other things we talked about, his wife and daughter have Australian records in a very unusual sport. There we go. Michael Ray. I am excited, as always, because I tell every single guest, and it's true, I'm excited to have them and honored to have them on the podcast. Three things. I want to just start off this podcast with three things that I've been listening to or watching that I want to add to your life, if that's okay with you. Number one, I have been listening to the audiobook over and over and over again. I love this book. Andrew McCarthy, if you are a kid of the 80s, so to speak, but if that name rings a bell, Andrew McCarthy was in Pretty in Pink, Weekend at Bernie's. He's also a director. He wrote a book called Walking with Sam. I am going to tell you, as a parent, as a dad, as a son, I loved this book. I'm going to just leave you at that. You can go to my recommendation, go to Audible, and find out what it's all about. What I have been watching, I finally got on the bandwagon of watching The Bear. Love it. Blew through season 2. I binge watched season 2. Being the Chicago boy, and matter of fact, I am wearing a Chicago Cubs t-shirt during this recording. But being a Chicago boy, I loved the storyline. I loved seeing the city, the food, The Bear. Great show on Hulu. And number 3, I am revisiting one of my favorite bands through Apple Music, and it's The Essentials. I think that's what like their best of that they do on Apple Music. But The Killers, I love The Killers, and I am listening to them constantly when Otis and I are at the dog park. That is in my headphones, in my between my ears, so to speak. Where's Tommy been? All right, let's get to that real quick before we bring in Michael Ray. I took a hiatus with the podcast because I did something really dumb, and that is I listened to experts. I listened to the podcasting gurus letting me know that even though we have over 200 episodes, matter of fact, we have over 240 episodes at the time of this recording. I listened to them. I listened to what they were saying. I took it for what it was worth, and then I completely collapsed and said, I guess I am not worthy of having a podcast. But I am so grateful that I still see people downloading it. I'm like, even though, I'm going to have you peek behind the curtain. Even though I don't make any money, it costs me money to produce this. It's a minimal cost, but it still costs me, and I'm okay with that. But I missed it. I missed doing it, and we have, going forward, some fantastic guests. I had a couple of conversations already recorded back in January, and I've been holding on to them, and I am going to release those, and I hope you enjoy them as well. All right, there we go. Michael Ray. Again, Michael Ray is the author of the book Who Knew? He is a LinkedIn Top 10 in Gender Equality Voices of 2022. He's a presenter, public speaker, but first and foremost, I love it. He's a dad. We had a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy it too. As Terry Crews would say, your success is my success. All right, Michael, I'm going to hit you with a hard-hitting question first, right out of the gate. Are you ready?
You go for it, Tommy.
Michael, how did you? I know it's still early. It's the afternoon, but how have you had fun today, either with yourself or with your daughter Charlie?
Oh, the morning rituals are always good. I think it annoys my daughter when I leap on the bed and going, it's morning, it's another day, let's go. So it's probably a little bit more fun for me than her, but I'm sure she'll look back with fondness on it when she's older, I think.
So it's the opposite. You jump on her bed versus the kids jumping on the parents' bed.
It's called payback, Tommy. I had to wait, and I waited patiently, but we're there.
When, because I know school for us here in the States is starting to roll back in. When does Charlie start up again, or is she already in school?
Still in school, Tommy. We do four terms each year with a couple of short breaks. So we've got 2 weeks to go until the end of this term before we go into the final term of the year, and our summer holidays start at the end of school, not in the middle of it. So just before Christmas, about 2 weeks before Christmas, we'll have a 5.5, nearly 6 week break, and it's through our summer.
Wow. It's just interesting hearing different sides of the world and how school is scheduled. Like I said, for example, like my son, he just went back to university, but he doesn't start for another week. And then a friend of his, also in university, he doesn't start for another 2 weeks. So it's just interesting hearing everybody's stories as far as getting back into it, or in Charlie's situation, your daughter's situation, she's still in it.
Yeah. And about to go into high school. So she's just finishing, we call it primary, I think you call it elementary school. So she'll be going into high school next year. So big transition for her, and I think she's more ready to embrace it than I am because it signals my advancing years.
Well, don't think of it as advancing years. Just think of yourself as being the next stage of Yoda.
I prefer that, Tommy. I'm just scribbling that down to refer to at some stage while I'm crying.
Well, let's get into it. You are as I don't know how you became or how do you become this, but according to your LinkedIn profile, Michael Ray, you're one of LinkedIn's top voices in gender equality for 2022. How did you achieve that? And was it even a goal?
Uh, Tommy, it was that far out of left field that I was getting congratulation messages sent to me on LinkedIn, and I wasn't even aware of it. And then that was happening through the morning, and then the afternoon, LinkedIn finally made contact with me to let me know and sent me through all of the little graphics to use on my site, on my profile type thing. But it was just through posting my experiences, Tommy, and I think it just came from a slightly different perspective on gender equality that made people realise that no one wins with outdated gender expectations, assumptions, and stereotypes, and we're all influenced by them, and a lot of the times we don't even realise them. And the only way we'll ever achieve true gender equality is when we work together, and until fatherhood is spoken about in the same glowing terms as motherhood, and until our boys are as tied as tightly to fatherhood as what our girls are to motherhood, we're swimming against the current. Because while we've rightfully got a chorus of people singing loudly that women can do anything men can do, there's barely a whisper of people saying that apart from birth and breastfeeding, men can, should, and can, do anything that women can do.
I have to write this down. Richard Reeves just posted an article talking about, and I'll have to dig it up again. He just did this week, and I'll post it on the show notes. But he was talking about something I want to touch on, what you were just talking about, gender equality, and that is there is, and he was specifically talking about, I believe, here in the States, but there are less and less male teachers, and this includes male teachers for young kids, the kindergarten age and up. And I would love to hear your take on this, Michael, as far as, this is a good opportunity. We were talking about Charlie and her being in school. What experience have you seen in the education field as far as gender equality? Is it, where Charlie goes to school, or around your areas there in Australia? Do you see more male teachers? Do you see more female teachers? Is it 50-50? What's your take?
We have the exact same problem here, Tommy. A lack of male teachers, pronounced, but we also have, I think, only it's definitely less than 30% of psychologists and men as well. We also have HR professionals, where UK is the highest proportion, where it's upwards of 78% of women are in HR. Here in Australia, it's about 66%, and I think in the States it's about 72%. So all of these siloed, gendered jobs all impact how men are portrayed and seen. And sadly, we have this outdated stereotype that women are just better at collaboration, better at empathy, better at people skills, and it's just not the case, Tommy. Where it's a learned skill, and The problem with stereotypes isn't that they're not true, it's that they're incomplete and insufficient. They make one story the only story, and that's what makes them so damaging. Is it's, well, no, come on, I see this a lot, and well, it's that confirmational bias. You're looking for it, so you see it.
Well, along those lines, I'm curious as far as taking a couple steps back and how you got on your journey of looking at equality. What was your aha moment that got you not to where you and I are having this chat tonight, but how did you end up on this path of being a bit of a flag waver, so to speak?
Mm. Um, Tommy, I've got no doubt if it hadn't have been for situation and circumstances, I would have travelled blindly through life, sleepwalking into the typical heteronormative, uh, stereotypical gendered role of, breadwinner dad and caregiver mum. But at the age of 17 months, suddenly it became just my daughter and I, with a mum playing no further part in her life. And then the realisation of my whole preparation for parenthood in my upbringing was basically my mum saying to me, wait till you have kids one day and see how you like it. Whereas my sister was earning good money babysitting, whereas I was out mowing lawns and doing all of those sort of things. So that when it came to, I became a dad at 49 years old. If you had have done a quick straw poll, who would have been better to raise a child, a cheese sandwich, a house plant, or me? I'm not saying I would have been last, but it would have been a tie for second. So, um, but these are learned skills. It's like any job that you go into, you may have a basic understanding of it, but that on-the-job training is priceless, and we learn as we go. And one of the biggest misnomers we have in this parenting gig is that the day our children are born, we become parents. Well, I like to say that we only begin becoming parents on the day our children are born, and it continues every day after that. Just like a student doesn't become a scholar when they walk through the school gates. So I'm slowly getting better, but as I get better, life, or my daughter, keeps throwing in new curveballs and new learning curriculum at me. Now I've got to learn about navigating, peer groups and friends, and this girl doesn't like that girl, and this boy I think likes me, and all of these new things. We've still got puberty to happen for me. Well, not for me, but for my daughter, that we've got to get through. So, and we've heard it a million times. There's no instruction book that comes with these kids, but it's even more so than that. It's every kid is unique in their own personalities and characters and situations, and so just as you wouldn't say to somebody, right, I need to change the timing belt on my car, what should I do? And then have someone tell you and then go, oh, but hang on, what brand is your car? What model is your car? What engine's in it? All of these different things make most of that, and most of it is unsolicited advice that comes to us dads, because we're assumed to be not the sharpest tool in the shed, we say here in Australia, but, when you look at the media depictions of dads, everyone from Homer Simpson to Al Bundy to Tim the Tool Man, there's very few respectful and accurate representations of contemporary fatherhood out there for us to model ourselves on. And I love a compliment as much as an ex-bloke, Tommy, but some of the compliments, they may think they're coming from a well-meaning place, but it's just, oh my goodness, you did a braid. I haven't cured cancer. It's just, it's there. All the, it's so good to see a dad out with his daughter having some fun. It's parenting. We don't. Thankfully, we've got to the point where we go, oh, gee, you're not the secretary. You're actually in the C-suite or a CEO. Good on you, lady. It's just, it's patronising, and it needs to be called out. If we need to be judged by the same standard. When people say to me, oh, you're such a great dad. Well, I want to be a great parent. I don't want to be a great dad, because we can safely say the bar for dads is a little bit lower than what what it actually needs to be if we're going to have that equality.
One of the things I enjoy is the fact that when I record these podcasts, I don't I don't do video because number one, I don't want to scare the guests, but number two, I feel that, and there's a point to this madness here, Michael, but I always feel that there's a little bit of bias once you see each other. And so I am sitting here, well, actually standing here. I have a standing desk, but I am standing here nodding, agreeing with you because one of the points you're talking about really resonated with me when I was a stay-at-home dad. And that was when I went to my former wife and I said, I really want to do this. I want to be a stay-at-home dad. I want to be able to help raise our son. And she gave me these I don't know how to put it, but she said to me, well, number one, you're an only child. Number two, you never babysat before. And number three, you never changed a diaper. What makes you qualified to do this? And I'm like, what you were talking about, it's on the job training. And I feel it's one of the best types of on the job training is being able to spend time with your kids. And so along those lines, Michael, when I got back into the workforce and, I would go to HR and we'd talk about my resume and they go, well, why do you have this gap? These like 2-year gap. And I would say I was a stay-at-home dad. And they look at me like I have a third eye and go, why? And I'm like, what do you mean why? And during those moments, I had the realization of understanding what women go through when they go back to the job force and say, yeah, I was a stay-at-home mom. And again, what you're talking about, Michael, about equality. I mean, why, and I guess the obvious answer is because, but it just gets frustrating, both sides of the coin that you have to go through these questions of why are you doing this? Why isn't your partner doing it? Well, this is how we do it.
Yeah, I used to volunteer at my daughter's school one day a week to help in the canteen, and the questions would come thick and fast because I'd be the only guy there, and I think by the questions that came, the only guy that is ever there. I wrote an article that was called "The Only Unicorn in the Village," and that's how it felt at some stage. Oh, why aren't you at work? Don't you work? Oh, what went wrong? Oh, where's your wife? Why are these? And it was all framed in the negative. Oh, what went wrong? What went? It's like no, like I want to be involved in the minutiae of my daughter's life. We seem to have lost sight in so much of the equality debate that the things that matter the most, the things of the greatest value, and the things that we want in our legacy aren't actually things. So when we say about, women are missing out on all these professional opportunities, and to continue their studies or use their studies or life outside of motherhood, exactly right. And, they are terrible. I think it's called the motherhood penalty. But on the flip side of that, there's the fatherhood forfeit. Dads miss out on that first day at school, the school performances, the sports days, being there to care and nurture and all of those things as well. And, it's funny how we have one group saying that caring is so undervalued and unpaid, and then we have other people going, but us dads going, but we miss out on this and we really want it. And to corral us into those two silos where one does caring and one does working, no one's actually winning, where we should be able to make genuine decisions that aren't influenced by taxes, by gender pay gaps, by all of these things, where we can go, you know what, I want to play to my strength. I'm a bloke. My boss is a bit of here in Australia, we might call him a knob. I don't like him. I don't enjoy my job, and I love my kids. But then we have the problem where we go, but you earn so much more than the mum. We need the income. So suck it up, sunshine. And we have men, as Richard Reeves says, living lives of quiet desperation. Whereas if we got rid of that pesky gender pay gap, and if women were valued and respected as much in the workforce as what men apparently are, then it would be a genuine conversation with a decision that was taken by the couple without those undue pressures. So, but at the moment, everything we do, we may think it's free choice, but, we're all being pushed and prodded, everything from media depictions of fatherhood to mum shaming to the inept dads. We're raised in a society and a culture that says only a mother's love, mother knows best, maternal instinct. And we blokes genuinely believe that if push comes to shove, if it comes right down to it, women are just naturally better at it. And yet, in my conversations, being the only unicorn in the village, the only bloke in the room, we're more similar than different. And mums are the exact same thing. When that first kid first comes home, it's like, my goodness, what do I do with this pink wriggly mess? It's crying. Is it hungry? Is it dying? Is it is it wind? Is it whatever? And mums have this same doubt. But if a woman speaks up, she's seen as somehow flawed as a woman. If a man speaks up, well, he's just a bloke. That's normal. And if she speaks up, that's unnormal. So a lot of times women will delay seeking help until it's at crisis point. And, everything's made worse by that. But with blokes, everyone offers this unsolicited parenting advice. And a lot of the times that unsolicited advice becomes the loudest noise and actually drowns out our instinct, our influences, our upbringing, which is innate and it's unique to all of us, because some of us are good parents because of our parents and some of us are good parents despite our parents. But we all deserve the right to write our own story and influence our children without having to follow some scripted. If a dad does it differently to mum, it's suddenly heresy. Mums do it differently to mums, different cultures, different upbringings. We've got 4 parenting styles: authoritarian, authoritative, permissive, and negligent. That's all there is. So man or woman is going to fall into one of those 4 styles, and they're not set in concrete. It's very easy to go from authoritative, where you've got boundaries and you explain things and you're involved, to authoritarian, when it's, come on, get your shoes on, we've got to go, do it this way, we're out. So, and then when we're exhausted and it's busy, can I have candy for breakfast? Yeah, do what you want, I'm exhausted. And suddenly we're permissive, and negligent is one we never want to fall into, but it's pretty easy to shift and blur the lines. But suddenly if a dad doesn't parent like a mum, it's wrong, and it's just not the case.
Well, I want to piggyback what you're just talking about, and our family being a blended family. When you're talking about parenting and how to parent and discipline, that was one of the first conversations when my wife and I decided to become a couple and engaged and married, and that was disciplining the kids. And how is that going to happen? Because again, as a blended family, my wife's 2 daughters, my 2 bonus daughters, they have a dad. My son has a mom. And when you get that unique dichotomy under one roof, everybody's households have different rules. And so we wanted to make sure that when we became a blended family, that we became in our opinion, our vision, to create a successful blended family. And so that's where communication was so key to our marriage. And, I said to my wife, I go, if discipline, my wife's oldest, Betsy, I said, you will handle that. If it's the other 2, because they're similar in age, I said, I'll handle, as the nickname was, we call them the Wonder Twins, because they could actually be brother and sister. But I said, I will handle the discipline there. And so that was probably the biggest thing, Michael, was making sure that we communicated together and realized the fact that, when the kids are going back to their biological parents' house, they're going to have different discipline, and they're going to have different ways of doing things. But when they come to our house, we try to nurture the best we could under the circumstances.
Yeah, 100%, Tommy, and that's what life is like. We all have, like my daughter and I, we have restaurant rules. When we're out, there are certain rules, but when we're at home and we're eating, it's okay to maybe lick the plate if it's extra delicious. But
Yes.
there are restaurant rules where we don't do it. So it's called being. It's actually emotional intelligence, being aware of situation and circumstances, others' beliefs, and being sensitive to them. I've just recently gotten married in February. My wife and I are chalk and cheese as far as, she's ultra organised and regimented, and she's got 1 million postgraduate degrees, holds world records. She's just my superior in every way. She's physically stronger than me in a sport we both compete in, and she's all about getting the most out of everyone. And I'm a bit more sort of, I would be your West Coast surf type thing, and she's your New York, Wall Street type thing. But we have the same values, and as far as daughter goes, and we respect each other beautifully. But as you mentioned, with a blended family now, she's my daughter's best friend. She holds her to account a lot harder than what I do. But if there's any discipline to do, I know it frustrates her that I don't discipline in the way she would, but she respects it, and everything works out in the end.
Well, first of all, congratulations on your nuptials.
Yes, she's a very lucky girl, is what you're trying to say, Tommy, but I get you.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing, the funny thing is, you and I are very similar when you're talking about, because my wife is originally from New York. And even though, as we were talking before recording, I'm originally from Chicago, I consider myself a little bit of head in the clouds type attitude. And so I feel you, because that's my wife as well, very similar to your wife, and you and I are very similar. And the funny thing, I was remembering a time where we were having a family dinner, and my wife and my other bonus daughter Becca were just having a lot of fun, and they were just kind of ribbing each other. And my wife says, "Well, if you don't knock it off, I'm gonna throw food at you." And we're all like, "Yeah, right, whatever." So this goes back to your restaurant rules. Well, we were home, no rules, and my wife actually did throw spaghetti at Becca, and it was one of the funniest things ever. And I'm going, "Hold on here, who is this lady throwing spaghetti across the room?"
Great. Yeah. Tommy, these are the memories, and these are the legacies, and these are the things that your kids carry with them through life. And they're the important things.
One thing I really wanted to ask you, and I know you, I know you a lot through what you post out there on LinkedIn, a lot of positivity and a lot of, every once in a while, I like when you challenge somebody, how they phrase something. And it's just fun as a third party, Michael, to watch. But my question is, I'm sure it's yes, but I want to go deeper into that. And that is, do you have male friends? And when I say that, do you have male friends that you can have those deep, honest conversations with, other than, we guys just sitting around the pub talking about, sports? We really don't delve into feelings. We don't delve into our own mental health. Do you have a circle of friends like that, Michael?
Now, I actually do, Tommy, but when there's a bunch of guys around, it's funny. Normally, it's a room full of guys telling stories about the stories that they imagine that those other guys are telling themselves about them. But when the conversation shifts and when it becomes psychologically safe, the level of emotion and depth of some of the conversations is fantastic. So it might start off lighthearted and ribbing. In Australia, we call it taking the piss out of each other. But I think we use humour as a way of testing the water. If I can make a joke about this, there's a grain of truth in it, and then we can maybe broach the subject depending on the response. So we'll see how it's taken, and then it's a little bit of thrust and parry, and then suddenly, before you know it, we're talking. So I do have some really great in-depth conversations, and it was just a few weeks ago. We were sitting around at an event, and we had a heart transplant doctor, a couple of same-sex dads, and a couple of blue-collar guys, all talking about parenting, and then getting advice on the best way to renovate the house, and then a little bit of medical advice from the heart transplant doctor. And I just thought to myself, what a wonderful, diverse, great conversation. And I guarantee you that it would have, because we were standing there having a drink at an event, it would have been portrayed as something else from a distance because of those stereotypes.
That's just a fantastic story. I love that. I love the fact that you, like you're saying, you had such a diverse group, but everybody got to share. Everybody got to learn something. And I'm sure at the end of the evening, you all were able to take something away, and hopefully, down the road, be able to use some of that advice that you all were sharing.
Yeah. Tommy, fatherhood unites us like nothing else, but parenthood actually unites us as well. As I said, because my daughter did ballet for a few years, so I was the only bloke in the hallway because you're not allowed to sit in the class. So sitting there talking with all the mums. So I got to listen as an observer, participate as a peer, and sit back and just go, you know what? We're not different. The same hopes, fears, and aspirations that we have for our kids are universal. I think if I could pick out a difference, it's mums seem to be more worried about how the world will impact their child, and we dads are more worried about how our child will impact the world. So we're very big about instilling values and character and behaving in a responsible way, whereas I'm not saying that's not important to mum, but if we had to pick one priority, and I ask this question all the time to parents, would you prefer your child was a bully or they were bullied? And dads would rather say, I would be horrified if my child was a bully, and mums say they would be horrified if their child was bullied. So it's, and again, that is a broad statement and stereotype, and there's always, the responses are spread across a spectrum. But I think that's why we work well as couples. I don't think that the Creator, Mother Nature, whoever, evolution would have created us as a team if we were both providing the exact same things.
I don't know if this is a question that you can answer, but I still want to ask it just because I enjoy having this conversation. I enjoyed our previous conversation. Um, how can dads be more open to talk to our kids about mental health? I mean, have you had any type of conversation with Charlie about her mental health?
All of the time, Tommy. And the first thing that dad has to do is dad has to be okay. We've heard it a million times about the analogy of the first thing that happens when the oxygen masks drop down on the plane is put your own on, because you're no good to anyone if you're not okay. Um, there's a lot of talk about um, men not being in touch with their emotions. I don't find that, but then again, um, the circles that I talk in, and you know, the groups that I'm in, a lot of men are. But the best thing to know that a daughter with a great relationship with a father at 16 has better mental health at 30. So children with involved, engaged, and present dads have better outcomes in social, behavioural, cognitive, so educational literacy. But it's not just a matter of just being there, it's being involved and engaged and listening, because the last thing we want our children to do is feel that we can't they can't speak to us, that they can't be open and honest, that they can't be exactly who they are, because the last thing we want is for our daughters ever to be scared to tell us that something's gone wrong. We want to be the first port of call. We want them to pick up the phone at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're at the party, when they said, Dad, there's going to be no alcohol, only a couple of friends. And when they get there, there's 20 friends, there's alcohol, and everything that we said was going to rule the party out. We don't want them to not be able to pick up the phone and go, Dad, you were right. It's all gone wrong. It's all gone pear-shaped. I think I need help. So it's just a matter of being accepting and having the conversations with your daughter. I have performance reviews all the time with my daughter. Sometimes she's harsh, and it's just, I'd still call her Bub, and it's like, Bub, how am I performing as a dad, you reckon? Oh, well, just you could do, well, Dad, sometimes when you whistle and cheer when I get an award at school, it's embarrassing. I've gone, yeah, but like that's my payoff for being a dad. We get to do that for the rest of your life. I'm going to embarrass you. I'm sorry, we can't do anything about it. But is there anything else? And she'll no, and I'd say, well, anything I could improve on. Oh, Bub, you got to let me know, because I'm going to give you some pointers after this. And so the power of an apology is amazing. If we make a mistake, sometimes I'll be short and I'll see the look on her face, and I'll just go, oh, Bub, sorry, pull me up. I shouldn't have done that. There's no excuse. It's not your fault. It's my fault. And being sure to let them know, if it's never about them. If somebody's rude, nasty, dismissive, that's on the other person. It's not on them, and they need to be able to speak up. And even with me, so that's why I say to my daughter all the time, Charlie, you got to pull me up, because I don't care whether it's a teacher, a policeman, whichever position of authority. If somebody has said something that has made you feel bad, you need to let them know.
I'm curious. So you and Charlie sit down and have a performance review, correct?
Yeah, it's normally on a bed at the end of the night. We still have our nightly chats. She never goes to bed on her own. I come in, she goes in, reads for a bit, and I come in to tell her and lay on the bed. And we have, sometimes they'll go for a while because she doesn't want to go to sleep, and other times they're short, Tommy. But there's never a night unless I'm travelling for work. But then there's still always a phone call where it's just open topics, anything like that.
So this is each and every night. This isn't like every quarter. This is each and every night.
Yep.
What's the word I'm looking for? Um, just the two of you talking about your day, essentially.
Yep. Whatever subject. Yep, whatever subject she wants, Tommy, and it's great. It's sometimes, but now I've got my new wife. Sometimes she'll tell me, oh, Charlie mentioned this and that, and I've gone, well, she hasn't mentioned to me, so I can't raise it with her because if there's ever anything that she's uncomfortable with, I don't want to betray her trust. So that goes into my wife's department. But yeah, I'm on her bed every night.
I'm writing this down. I love this. Now with our kids being older, I wish I had known about this. I think this. I mean, I guess it's not too late. I don't know.
It's never too late, Tommy. It's never too late to be exactly the parent that your kids need, because their needs will change all the time. And as I say, sometimes, Tommy, I'll go in, I'll lay down and just say, because we also talk through the next day. Bub, I've got to be here, here, and here. You've got footy training tomorrow night. What are you going to have for lunch in the morning? Make sure because she makes all her own lunch and everything like that. And then it's, anything else. And, it's just, how do you reckon I'm doing as a dad? Because I'm still learning. You'll still learn to be a person. So don't be too harsh on me, because I'll pull you up on your performance as well.
I brought you into this world, Charlie. I can take you out, right?
Exactly, Tommy. I've used that phrase a few times.
I want to talk to you about your book, Who Knew? And I'm curious, what are one or two points from the book that you would love to offer and share?
The start of it was when my daughter's mother and I first separated. I've been under the weather for a while. I had a small car accident. We'd separated 2 weeks earlier. I'd moved out of the home, hadn't seen my daughter. Had a small car accident. They just went in to scan my neck, and they found out that I had some lumps and bumps and things that weren't meant to be there. So suddenly I'd gone from thinking everything was great to now where I was looking at a future that wasn't guaranteed, and coming to divorce court, it actually worked for me because we got everything pushed through urgently, because I had to start treatment. And my life at that stage, when the doctor said to me, "Oh, we've got this, and this. You're going to be in hospital for a while. We need to get started straight away." Suddenly my life had become like a house that I'd filled with everything throughout those 49 years before I became a father. And suddenly it was on fire. There was flame leaping through the roof and smoke billowing out the windows. And at that moment, I was forced to decide what I was prepared to try and rush back into that house to try and salvage. And the only thing that came to mind was the impact that this was going to have, not only on my daughter, but also on my family. My mum's still alive, my friends. And so after that, Tommy, nothing mattered. And the treatment got hard and grueling for a while, but just wanting to maximise my time with my daughter, thinking, will she even remember me? She was 9 months old at that stage. I wasn't sure if she would have any memories of me. And I still remember the judge in court when he awarded custody to start with. At that stage was 50-50, because they were arguing that I wouldn't be able to care for her given the treatment, and there was no use my daughter actually forming a relationship with me if it wasn't going to continue into the future. And I still remember the judge's words, and they ring in my ears a lot. He said, "This child deserves to form fond, firm and lasting memories of a father to carry with her through life." And that's how I live my life now. Sure, the dishes can be stacked up in the sink, the house can be a bit dirty, but if Charlie says, "Dad, can we go to the park and kick the footy?" what's an hour going to matter? And, that's why I said, "Bub, I'll give you an hour, and then we've got to do this. Deal? Deal. And you've got to help me with this? Deal." She contributes a lot around the house because she takes great pride in it, but we're a team, and we have been, as I said, from 17 months through to nearly 6 years old, it was just her and I. And her contributions around the house and to helping really made a difference, and she knows that. So she's a great little cook. We, Bub, we're doing this for dinner. Okay, what do you want to do? I'll do the vegetables, you do the meat, and great. I did the dishes last night, you do them tonight, and it's just a great little team. But I really lent on it during that time alone, Tommy, and vice versa. But I think it helped both of us.
I have to ask, what moments are you proud of yourself? We can sit here and talk about, we have these great moments with our kids, but for our own mental health, Michael, is there a particular moment or moments out there that you were super proud as both a dad and a man?
Tommy, there's so many. I've never felt such an intense, not only pride, but there's never been a feeling that comes close to that level of pride you get when you hear your voice coming out of your child, and you realise that some of your example has been internalized, and you're looking at a true version of yourself, and you just, wow, I'm actually possibly getting some of this stuff right. She's a great little kid. She's just, I've got the easiest kid in the world, Tommy, and I don't take credit for it. So it's not, she was born the way she is, and her way in the world makes me seem a lot more competent as a parent than I actually deserve credit for. And that's what I say to dads, really the inverse thing is parenting's not about our kids. It's about us. The growth and maturity and improvement isn't just in our child, it's in us. And suddenly you look at it, it's like you've got that the hardest cryptic crossword out of the New York Times, and you've just done it. And it's like, how did that happen? It's you become, fatherhood brings out the best version of us. And I remember when I was younger thinking that fatherhood looked limiting, thinking of all the things that fathers had to do and the things they couldn't do. And I've actually found it the opposite. Fatherhood has given me the opportunity to cast off the ego and facade and discover who I truly am. It hasn't changed who I was. It's revealed who I always should have been. And that's the aha moment now, where you don't worry about appearances and ego and competition and things like that. When I walk in the door each night and hear Dad, it's I'm Steve Jobs and Elon Musk and all of them. I wouldn't swap my life with them for anything at that time.
What lesson have you learned this year as a dad, as a man?
My daughter's just playing football, and not soccer. We have AFL football, so it's a pretty hard contact sport. She's the smallest kid on the team by a mile. She's 11 years old, and she's playing in the under 14s. So a lot of girls are outweighing her by 25, 30 kilos. And Tommy, she's a tackling machine. And I say to her, Bub, like, why are you grabbing them so hard? And she's gone, Dad, because I just want to get that ball. And I said, yeah, but why? She's gone, I don't want to let my teammates down. And I think because we've always emphasised we're all a team, and you've got to realise how your actions impact other teams. So, if you're leaving your stuff lying around, we're not going to pick it up, and it makes the house uncomfortable. So just sort of seeing, you realise they're always watching, Tommy. You might think they're not listening, but they're always watching, and that's what really influences them. And that's made me pick up. Sometimes I get caught up in the negative, especially in the space I work in, Tommy, in the quality space. Some of it can be very negative and toxic. even victimy sort of thing. And and I've just realised to count my blessings. And life's too short, Tommy, to be negative.
You mentioned something earlier that your wife is better at a sport than you are. What sport is it?
Powerlifting, Tommy. My daughter holds an Australian powerlifting record. She said at 10 years old she lifted double body weight in a deadlift. Beat at that stage boys compete in the same age group. She smashed the boys record. I hold a couple of Australian records, but my wife holds about 43 world records. So I'm around 100 kilos. My wife weighs 67 kilos, and she's got a 220 kilo deadlift. My best deadlift's 212.
Wow.
And I'm double a weight just about.
Wow.
So when there's a jelly jar that the lid won't come off, it gets handed straight to her.
Wow. That is impressive.
And she trains my daughter, Tommy. And the funny thing is, when we're in the gym, the big solid blue plates that they have, the 20 kilo plates, she squats with 3 of those on each side, does reps, so 140 kilo squats, and she'll do 10 reps. A gentleman came up and said to me one day, we were standing there talking, he said, "Do you have many sets to go?" And I said, "Don't ask me, ask her." And he laughed. And I said, "No, seriously, she's doing it." He said, "No, she's not." He said, she gets in, she does her 10 reps, and she said, "You can have it now." He said, "Don't bother, I'm too embarrassed to do it."
That's impressive. Congratulations to you and your girls in your household.
Yeah, we don't do stereotypes here, Tommy. My wife's also got a law degree. She was a solicitor or a lawyer, as you say, in England. She's got an MBA. She's currently studying her master's in business law. She's got all of these world records, and then there's me. I can tell a good joke, and that's my contribution. But I do all the cooking, and I love to cook and love to bake, and so it's exactly reverse. She trains my daughter in powerlifting because she's a great coach as well. So we're nearly reverse. I sew. I do all of the school performance costumes because I used to own a sportswear company, so I'm pretty good on the sewing machine. So I'm always taking dresses in and things like that for my wife. And
every time I have a conversation with you, Michael, I learn more and more about you, and I'm just thrilled. I don't know how to describe it other than a beautiful moment.
Thanks, Tommy. If only you weren't so far away, I'd love to have a coffee with you, mate.
That will happen. I guarantee it. It will happen. Long story short, my wife and I were supposed to be in Australia, but something called a pandemic happened. So, but that is still our plan to come to Australia and New Zealand.
Hit me up when you need, Tommy. I'd love to show you.
Don't worry. You'll be one of the first calls there, Michael. With that being said, I am again grateful, Michael, for your time. I am grateful that I see so much wonderful, positive content you put out there. How can this audience serve you? What can they do for you, Michael?
Tommy, I'm pretty prolific on LinkedIn, so hit me up on there. I've also got a website which I don't update as much as I should, michaelray.com.au. Facebook is Michael Ray Solo Dad, and there's an Instagram attached to that as well. But if you look up the website, michaelray.com.au, all of the links through to there, and you can keep an eye on what I'm doing and what I'm saying. But there's a lot of content that goes up onto LinkedIn and then gets shared through the other socials.
I'm just... I don't want to end this, but I know you have the afternoon, and it's almost bedtime for me because I'm an old guy.
Tommy, it's tomorrow here, so it's actually Wednesday lunchtime. So, do you want me to look up the sports results so you can get a bet on?
I wish. Yeah, I already know my Chicago Cubs lost tonight, so yeah, I'll get over it because they'll play again tomorrow. But I hope we can do this again. And like you said, I hope one day, and like I said, I'm guaranteeing that we'll do this in person. We'll do it I'll with my wife, your wife, with Charlie, and just sit around and talk and have some fun.
Definitely, Tommy. I'll look forward to it.
Wait, before you go, please go to the show notes and sign up for the newsletter. If you sign up with the newsletter, you will receive a free ebook, 25 Tips for Divorced Dads. Go ahead, sign up. It's free. Did I say free?